SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
කම්ෆර්ට් මූඩියෙන් භාගයයි කලක් පවතින අලුත් පෙනුමයි.
Tonight, on the spot, former military intelligence chief tells the court that he never received April 4th intel before the Easter attacks. End of the session. The parliament prorogued. The president flies out of the country. A fine line. Economist says IMF could give us dollar breathing space, but at what cost?
In the dollar scenario, we might have breathing space, but the question is, we will go back to the borrowings and we'll go back to the same cycle to have a similar crisis few years down the road.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Monday the 13th of December 2021.
Introducing New Hellmann's, the world's #1 mayonnaise brand, now in Sri Lanka.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammik Ekanaika. Now, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa signed off on a Gazette Extraordinary, proroguing Parliament with effect from midnight last night before leaving for Singapore on a private visit this morning. Following this, sessions of the 9th Parliament will commence on the 18th of January 2022. The surprise prorogation, however, dissolved essential parliamentary oversight committees, such as the Committees on Public Enterprises and Public Accounts, which will need to be reconstituted next month.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa left the island this morning on a private visit to Singapore. The details of the visit have been shrouded in secrecy, including his return date. However, there is some speculation that it may be medical related. However, before his departure, the president made a surprising move by issuing an extraordinary gazette that prorogued Parliament from midnight yesterday until the 18th of January 2022. With Parliament sessions having already been on somewhat of a break until the 11th of January, following the end of the budget debate on Friday, the president has thereby added an extra week to the seasonal holidays of parliamentarians. According to the Gazette, the President exercised powers vested in him through Article 70 of the Constitution and effectively brought the current session of the 9th Parliament to an end. This is the 50th time that Parliament has been prorogued since 1947, and the session that has just ended was the 25th since 1978. However, there are many questions as to what exactly proroguing Parliament entails and what effect it will have on the day-to-day operations of the country's legislature. From what we know of the process, prorogation is only a temporary recess of Parliament that, according to the Constitution, cannot extend to a period of more than 2 months. During prorogation, all current business and proceedings pending before the House are effectively quashed, except for any impeachment proceedings. What will be affected in this instance are the parliamentary oversight committees such as the Committees on Public Enterprises and Public Accounts. Under the chairmanship of Professor Charita Herath, the Committee on Public Enterprises since its appointment in September this year has been quite active, probing several state institutions. And as things stand, since the Gazette was issued last night, these committees will need to be reconstituted at the commencement of the new session on the 18th of next month by a newly appointed Committee of Selection. The Committee on High Post, Sectoral Oversight Committees and Select Committees of Parliament, however, will continue to operate according to parliamentary standing orders.
Former Director of Military Intelligence, who was in office when the Easter Sunday terror attacks happened, gave evidence before the Colombo High Court trial at bar. He told the court that any information pertaining to the foreign intelligence of a pending attack the State Intelligence Service received was not shared by SIS Chief Nilantha Jayawardena before the attack. He added that Jayawardena also did not bring the matter up during the last intelligence review meeting to be held prior to the fateful day. The case against former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando over committing murder through criminal negligence of responsibility in being unable to prevent these Sunday terror attacks, despite the existence of adequate intelligence of a pending attack, was taken up today before the Colombo Permanent High Court trial at bar. During the proceedings, former Director of the Military Intelligence Directorate, Brigadier Chula Koditwaku, who was the incumbent at the time of the attacks, gave evidence. He told the court that he made the then Defence Secretary, the Inspector General of Police and the Director of the State Intelligence Service aware of the extremist actions of Zahran Hashim, the leader of National Tawhid Jamaat. He noted that 9 letters were sent to the said persons outlining the threat NTJ posed to national security. The former military intelligence chief was asked by the Additional Solicitor General whether he received any intelligence of a pending attack before the attack happened. The witness responded saying that he did not. Then one of the judges asked him whether he received the letter relating to the foreign intelligence received by the then Director of State Intelligence on the 4th of April 2019, warning of an attack. The witness responded, quote, "No, I did not receive such a letter. I even attended the last intelligence review meeting prior to the attack on the 9th of April. It was also attended by then SIS Director Nilantha Jayawardena, but he did not give information about the April 4th intelligence during that intelligence review meeting." Unquote. The bench then asked the witness whether there was any impediment to the former SIS Director to submit the April 4th intelligence at the intelligence review meeting. Former Director of the Military Intelligence Directorate, Brigadier Chula Kodithuaku, replied, quote, "There was no such impediment. Normally, it is the SIS Director who makes the opening submissions at intelligence review meetings. If he was in possession of information of an attack by the 9th of April, he could have presented it at the intelligence review meeting. There's no impediment to that. The best place to present intelligence, in fact, is the intelligence review meeting. All who participate in it are trustworthy and have specialist knowledge on security. But there was not much cooperation among state institutions when exchanging intelligence. The State Intelligence Service too didn't show such cooperation." Unquote. He went on to say, quote, "When I received intelligence, I never informed the President directly. I was supposed to inform the National Intelligence Chief and the Defence Secretary via the Army Commander. But all intelligence chiefs had an understanding that SIS Director Nilantha Jayawardena directly communicated intelligence to the then President." Unquote. And thus the former Director of Military Intelligence concluded giving evidence. Defence Secretary General Kamal Gunaratne calls for greater intelligence sharing among countries to tackle the scourge of terrorism. Addressing an event, he pointed to the recent knife rampage in New Zealand by an individual of Sri Lankan origin as an instance where intel sharing would have come in handy. The Defence Secretary also noted that certain anti-Sri Lankan factions are currently attempting to tarnish the country's hard-earned peace.
The graduation of a total of 145 officers of Tri-Forces, including 18 from foreign nations, who followed the course number 15 of Past Staff College course at the Defence Services Command and Staff College, was recently held in Colombo under the patronage of Defence Secretary Retired General Kamal Gunaratne.
National security threats today also encompass a wide array of non-traditional corrections. In such a context, today, after over a decade since completely evicting the menace of terrorism from Sri Lanka, certain anti-social and anti-Sri Lankan parties are in the process of tarnishing the hard-earned peace and creating a feeling of mistrust and division among the ethnic groups. Therefore, it is our utmost responsibility to carry out an in-depth analysis on the potential threats and initiate counter-actions against detrimental consequences well in advance in order to prevent catastrophes emanating against the national security of Sri Lanka. The constant and continuous assessment and analysis of geopolitical environment is essential to evaluate the potential threats that could evolve in the contemporary environment. Today, politico-religious radicalization is active in spreading the religious extremism, and Easter Sunday attacks are the most recent outbreak of the violence in our motherland. In this context, sharing of intelligence between the intelligence organizations of friendly nations working in harmony becomes a crucial factor in combating such calamities. A recent example can be seen in the incident occurred in one of our friendly foreign countries, that is in New Zealand, where the knife rampage carried out by an assailant of Sri Lankan origin, which could have been countered through sound intelligence operations and liaison between New Zealand and Sri Lanka. Separatism, as we have foreseen, as a demand of LTTE with the availability of pro-LTT elements abroad and its covert supportive elements in the local, does pose a considerable threat, as it had been well clear with the recent developments of United Nations human rights allegations.
Central Bank Governor Ajit Nimad Cabral took to social media today to deny claims by opposition parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva that he was set to join the cabinet discussion on the big question of whether Sri Lanka should seek an IMF bailout or not. Calling the SJB MP's claim fake, he also accused the opposition of trying to create a false sense of uncertainty by making such claims. Meanwhile, speaking to First at 9 today on the IMF question, Dr. Indrajit Aponsu of the University of Colombo said that Sri Lanka could get some breathing space through an inflow of dollars, but at a cost.
Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Ajit Nimad Cabral, has denied being summoned before the cabinet along with Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, S.R. Atigala. He was responding to comments expressed by Samagi Janabalawege parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva at a media briefing yesterday, where he alleged that the cabinet was set to decide on the million-dollar question of whether Sri Lanka should head to the International Monetary Fund or not. Speaking yesterday, Dr. De Silva explained, however, that Sri Lanka had lost its chance to seek IMF assistance, which he says should have been done last November instead. Taking to social media, the central bank governor labelled the opposition MP's claims of the cabinet summons as fake and accused him of carrying out a disinformation campaign to create unnecessary uncertainty in the country. Meanwhile, foreign media outlets are reporting of moves by the Indian government to prepare an emergency economic relief package to help tide Sri Lanka over. The package is expected to include a food and health security package, an energy security package, and a currency swap in addition to a serious push for Indian investments in the island. The package comes following a two-day official visit to New Delhi by Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa earlier this month. Meanwhile, economist and senior lecturer at the University of Colombo, Dr. Indrajit Aponsu, believes that unlike what some opposition figures say, given Sri Lanka's current situation, heading to the IMF could help balance out Sri Lanka's dollar problems, but possibly at the cost of social welfare programs for the most affected by the pandemic.
If Sri Lanka decides to go to the IMF, let's assume that scenario, the question you're asking is whether how the IMF can help. Well, the IMF can help with regard to the dollar issue, with regard to the current problem of having a balance of payment strain and the reserves issues. And also, if you go to the IMF, it is quite possible financial markets look at it as a positive sign and they might rally behind the IMF package and will start extending support, financial support to the Sri Lankan need. But the question is whether the government is looking at such a borrowing policy, having gone through so much of borrowing in the past and having precipitated a kind of a problem that we are in now because of these free borrowings to finance free imports. In case if a government goes to IMF and look for a bailout package, you're asking what sort of policy reforms they will put forward. Of course, the IMF has been renowned for the kind of policies historically. I mean, they are basically talking about, as we call in economics jargon, Washington consensus, basically to say that free market, free trade, small budget deficits, and on and on. Now, the thing is, these policies tend to have major outcomes, repercussions on a country. Budget deficit cutting means you're cutting on the expenditure. Cutting on the expenditure means you're basically cutting a lot of social welfare, which are at a time where people are really in very serious problems. On top of COVID, which has affected many people across, especially the poor people, we are having a double trouble because of the tourism problem, which has employed millions of people in this country, and they are jobless. So therefore, if the IMF line is followed, it is quite possible we might have much more painful situations, especially with regard to those affected people who are spread across the country and who are needing some breathing space. But on the balance of payment scenario, in the dollar scenario, we might have breathing space. But the question is, we will go back to the borrowings and we'll go back to the same cycle to have a similar crisis some few years down the road.
We will see you shortly on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the government insists that it has no intention of imposing travel restrictions in the festive period ahead, as the COVID combat strategy has changed. Instead of restrictions, State Minister Professor Channa Jayasumana says that the administration of boosters is given priority as the way forward.
The prime focus of Sri Lankan health authorities now is vaccination. To be more precise, to fully vaccinate the eligible population and see the completion of the booster administration before the looming season of celebration. So far, 15,956,438 people have received at least one dose of the vaccine, while 13,789,917 people are completely immunized. The booster, meanwhile, has been administered to 1,308,022 people so far. With Christmas just around the corner, it is just as well that there is a certain degree of enthusiasm among the people to get vaccinated, unlike before. But there are some who stay clear of the jab owing to fears of possible side effects.
අපට වාර්තා වෙලා තියෙනවා මේ ෆයිසර් එන්නත තුන්වෙනි මාත්‍රාව හැටියට බූස්ටර් එන්නත හැටියට ලබා ගත්තට පස්සේ විශේෂයෙන්ම වැඩිහිටියන්ට ඊටාම සුළු ආබාධ තත්ත්වයන් මතුවලා තියෙනවා කියලා විශේෂයෙන්ම එන්නත් දීපු ස්ථානේ අතේ වේදනාවක් ඒ වගේම රතු පහයක් ඇතිවීම ඒ වගේම හිස රදය ඒ වගේම දණහි සමාරු සහ හන්දිපත් අමාරු පොඩි උණ ගතියක් එහෙම ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. නමුත් මේ වෙනතෙක් සැලකිය යුතු මට්ටමේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් අපිට වාර්තා වෙලා නැහැ. උණ තත්ත්වයක් ඇඟපත අමාරුවකට එන්නත ලබා ගත්තට පස්සේ දින දෙක තුනක් ඇතිවීම සාමාන්‍ය තත්ත්වයක්. ඒ ගැන අසාමාන්‍ය විදිහට බිය වෙන්න හේතුවක් නැහැ.
Meanwhile, the vaccine rollout for selected groups under the age of 20 is still underway. The National Advisory Committee on Communicable Diseases granted permission to administer one dose of Pfizer to children in the 12 to 15 age group and a second dose for 16 to 19 age group. The second dose for the 16 to 19 age category will, however, be administered after 3 months from the first dose of administration. In any case, the Family Health Bureau notes that there has only been 89 deaths among children below the age of 18 so far during the pandemic. Though there has only been 89 deaths among children below the age of 18 so far, some parents are concerned about their children developing complications following vaccination. Myocarditis, to be precise, meaning the inflammation of the heart, which medical experts say isn't detrimental.
People are worried about the myocarditis associated with Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. I would say the numbers of myocarditis per million is, with the first dose, it is like around 10 per million, but with the second dose, the maximum number would be 30 per million. But I always would like to remind the public as well as for the children, there are no deaths reported among pediatric community with regards to myocarditis in children after Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Therefore, I urge people to move their children to their schools to get their vaccination, encourage them to get their vaccination.
Last time when the people were left to exercise self-restraint during a festive season, the third wave was the result. With the restrictions that came at the heels of it still fresh in memory, people fear another bout of restrictions. However, when quizzed on the matter, State Minister Professor Channa Jayasumana explained that the experience of the past 2 years has led to a change in strategy.
මේ සිංහල අවුරුදු කාලෙදී වෙසක් කාලෙදී අපි විවිධ සීමා පෙන්නුවා. හැබැයි මොන සීමා දැම්මත් ඒකෙන් ඇති වෙන ප්‍රතිඵල මට හිතෙන්නේ අඩුයි කියලා තමයි අපේ නිරීක්ෂණය. විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ පළාත් අතර සීමා දැම්මා, සංචරණ සීමා දැම්මා, විවිධ ගැසට් පළ කරා. ඒ තීන්දුව තීරණ ගත්තට නීතිමය වශයෙන් අපි නවත්තන්න හැදුවට ජනතාව ඒකට දක්වපු සහයෝගය මං හිතන්නේ එතරම් ප්‍රමාණවත් නැහැ. ඒ කියන්නේ අත්දැකීම් තියෙන නිසා තමයි මේ අවුරුද්දේ අන්තිම සතියේදී එවන තත්ත්වයක් උද්ගත වෙන්න පුළුවන් නිසා අප නීති රීති වලින් වළක්වනවට වැඩිය දැනුවත් කිරීම මගින් සහ මේ බූස්ටර් එන්නත ලබා දීමෙන් උන්ට ආරක්ෂාව සපයන එක තමයි අපේ තීරණය.
The booster before Christmas also happens to be the same plan the UK government is implementing. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson warns of having to face a tidal wave of COVID infections by the end of December, even if all the people have taken the first and second doses of the vaccine, in the backdrop of Omicron, the new COVID variant. So far, the variant has infiltrated at least 57 countries. And today, the first Omicron-related death was reported. It came from the UK.
Now, the police are seeking public assistance in locating 2 missing boys aged 10 and 12. Now, according to the police, the children had reportedly gone missing from their home in the area of Banduragoda in Wattemulla. The residence falls under the Kota Denyawa police area. Now, issuing a statement, the police headquarters said that Kotadeniyawa police have received a complaint regarding the sudden disappearance of the two boys who are cousins. The duo had been seen last on the 23rd of November. Police said that investigations carried out so far have failed to uncover any information regarding the whereabouts of the boys. The police have requested the people to provide any information regarding the children by calling the Kotadeniyawa Police OIC on 071 859 1634 or the Kotadeniyawa Police Station on 033 224 0050 or 033 227 2222. The Pakistani police have arrested 18 more suspects over the lynching of Sri Lankan Priyantha Kumara in Sialkot. Sialkot police are quoted saying that the latest arrests put the total number of suspects in custody at 52. Media report that the suspects were produced before a special anti-terrorism court in Gujranwala, which remanded them in police custody for 15 days. The court had ordered that the suspects be produced before court again on the 28th of December. The government of Punjab has decided to conduct the relevant trial on a daily basis. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, the all-share price index ended in the green today after gaining 268.90 points to end at 11,662.38. The S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks, meanwhile, ended at 4,200.29 after gaining 125.66. Now, here's Dimata Matthew with a brief report on today's market performance.
Today we saw the market significantly move up, 269-point gain during the day, sizably large. 11,600 was crossed today as the index closed at 11,662. Overall, we are seeing the S&P SL 20 also crossed the 4,200 mark as the market gained by 129 points. So the new blue chip counters led by LOLC Holdings is leading the way for the market and pushing the index to higher levels. And we are seeing very high level of turnover today, 8.1 billion rupees, and with it we are seeing a number of transactions also significantly increased to 54,000, significantly higher than the usual retail activity. So we are seeing an intense level of activity in the market where the transportation sector is leading the way while the diversified financials and the capital goods sectors are closely following behind. So in addition to that, what we are also seeing is some interest is coming into dollar income companies. So number of dollar income companies are having a lot of buying interest. LOLC Holdings is leading the way. In addition to that, we are seeing significant interest coming into counters such as Haley's. And then similar to the diversified financial sector, we are seeing some interest come into the banking sector as well.
The Sri Lankan rupee, meanwhile, remained unchanged at 202.99 cents against the US dollar today as well. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. One person was killed and 14 were injured in a shooting at a vigil near Houston, Texas yesterday. A large crowd had gathered for what was termed a celebration of life when a vehicle approached and its occupant opened fire. According to local media, the shooting happened in Baytown, where a vigil for another shooting victim was being held. The local county sheriff said that of the 14 injured, 3 were reportedly in critical condition. 3 of the wounded were taken to hospital by helicopter, with one of the injured believed to be a young child. Local police also reported a large unruly crowd gathered around the hospital, where the victims were taken, with police having to block all entrances to the facility. With no arrests announced so far, authorities have also been unable to immediately provide a description of the suspect. Now then, two cargo ships collided during foggy conditions today in the Baltic Sea between the Danish island of Bornholm and the southern Swedish city of Stad, and a rescue operation has been launched for two missing people. As a result of the incident, the Swedish Maritime Administration said that a 55-metre Danish registered vessel had capsized and was upside down. The Danish Joint Operations Centre said that the vessel had two people on board who are currently missing. The other ship, a 90-metre British registered Scott carrier, was functional and its crew are safe. The rescue operation near the site, which was riddled with wreckage, was ongoing more than 5 hours after the incident, with Swedish divers standing by on land to investigate the hull. A spokesperson for the Danish Meteorological Institute said that there was fog in the area at the time of the incident, which happened at around 3:30 a.m. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.